Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. As you can see by the title, today I'm going to discuss groups that I believed flopped in 2023. One of these groups here are actual flops, like you're never going to find them on New Group Promoter, maybe Vivi's, but anyway. However, I would say that this year in music hasn't been the best for them. It was probably worse than the previous years. So that's what I mean by flop. I don't care about no charts and sales, to be quite honest with you. That's not the main focal point of this video. But with that being said, let's begin. This video is kind of long, so I'm gonna do a speed run of groups that I don't feel like talking about. I would add Misamo, Boy Next Door, Cherry Bullet, Treasure, Vivi's, and Twice. Misamo because the song was bad. I don't remember what it's called. Let's go with Not Even Now. But the album Masterpiece was even worse. Like, you named it Masterpiece and that shit was dog doo-doo. And all the time people spent waiting for Misamo to finally debut, it just was not worth it to me. Like, if you've been a fan of them for X amount of years, you really enjoyed it. But being here since 2019, I didn't really like it. It wasn't worth my time at all. I would add Boy Next Door because, I don't know, I just feel like they were supposed to be boy genes. They were gonna, bring in the new wave of boy group excellence. They were gonna put boy groups back on the map for the mainstream. But they're really just your average boy group, and I feel like Zero Base One kind of outdid them when it came to that. Granted, they had an entire survival show to back them up, but still, they're just kind of boring. I would add Cherry Bullet because obviously I did. There's no argument there. Treasure because I said so. Vivi's, the popularity keeps declining. Nobody cares. From what I've been seeing, they released a title track, yet nobody cares about it. Like, the choreo is kind of getting them on people's timelines, but outside of that, again, nobody's talking about the music, and then the B-sides just weren't good. And they just keep making bad music. Like, it got really bad with Pull Up, but here we are today. It got even worse. And then finally, Twice, because nobody remembers Ready to Be and Set Me Free, and it's really upsetting. Like, upsetting in the sense that, like, how do you go an entire year and Twice don't make noise? Like, that's odd. Listen, I know that I've made it my life's mission to leave men out as much as possible, but I couldn't help but notice how uneventful and boring this year has been for BTS. Obviously, this is more about the individual members rather than the group as a whole, since BTS has gone on an indefinite hiatus given that they must complete their mandatory military service, which includes counting pens, directing traffic, and serving bowls of chili, but that's not the point. The point is, every single member minus Jin, and kind of RM, has released solo music, and most of it wasn't good. I think there may be a couple of songs here and there that we can all agree are decent, and maybe one or two that are genuinely good. But outside of that, I think most people would agree that their debuts were lackluster, uneventful, and auditory dog doo-doo. On top of this, they made very little noise outside of their fandom. Mind you, I was prepared to be sick and annoyed of BTS this year because I knew the solos were coming, meaning that the releases would be much more frequent and they would be even more inescapable than before. But when I say these songs made absolutely no noise, I mean just that. For the first time ever, it felt like BTS were actually irrelevant. The one solo that became the timeline's favorite hit was Jungkook's song 7, but he released a full album sometime last week and absolutely nobody moved. It's probably gonna debut at #1 on the charts and then immediately begin free falling like Jimin. Once they begin promoting S7 again, the tides will definitely turn for them, but this year was their biggest flop yet. would think the group composed of the biggest idols from one of the biggest K-pop companies of all time wouldn't even know the word flop and struggle, but unfortunately for my sisters, they live on Unsuccessful Street, and it kills me to say it. Got the Beat was shaping up to be the most iconic collaboration of our time, and instead, for the past 2 years, this group has been a complete and utter joke to the K-pop industry. Mind you, they're only active for about 2 weeks out of the year, maybe a week and a half. So with that, you get 351 days to plan and properly execute their releases. But both times have been uninspired, rushed, messy, and terrible. Not only that, but the unit itself takes away time that can be spent with their respective groups. At the time of their debut and comeback, aespa's full album was long overdue and at this point forgotten. Red Velvet's was also pushed back. Hyo and Taeyeon ain't got shit to do because SM pretends like OGG doesn't exist, and I'm still waiting on my BoA album or single. Like, give me something, you know? Anyway, so you would think if we're pulling these idols from their groups during critical moments in their career, we could at the very least make it worth everyone's time. Provide them with the best team in our company and make shit pop. But that's just not the case. All they're given are outdated, recycled concepts, a very lazy creative direction, NCT rejects, and terrible choreography. Did I mention that the music is not good? Like, you all could say, you know, Rose and whatever else was on there was cute, Mala was better, but whatever. But still, at the end of the day, that album was nothing special. Got the Beat could go away and nothing would change. Like, they somehow bring absolutely nothing to the table, so I don't even know why we're continuing to keep them alive. At the start of the year, we saw NMIXX finally ditch their underdeveloped mixed pop concept, which birthed songs like OO and Dice, for something a bit more sensible and easy on the ears like Love Me Like This and Roller Coaster. This change in concept, sound, and identity seemingly worked well for them in the beginning. Love Me Like This was their highest charting single to date and earned them their first music show win. However, they haven't exactly been able to recreate the success of their previous title track since. They've only had one comeback since Love Me Like This. Things may very well change in the near future, but even songs like OO and Dice were able to crack the top 80 and 50 respectively on competitive charts like Melon, whereas Roller Coaster and Party O'Clock struggled to achieve the top 100 on the same chart. In an era where groups are seeing significant growth in their album sales, NMIXX's Wikipedia page shows that this may not exactly be the case this time around. They still sold a lot, don't get me wrong, but this era sales are 30,000 less than the previous release. And unlike Love Me Like This, NMIXX didn't receive any music show wins for either track. Also, the tracks didn't make much noise outside of the discussions regarding their change in identity. Despite hopping on the shuffling drum patterns trend currently taking over music, most people didn't really care for either track. I saw people saying that A Midsummer NMIXX's release wasn't memorable, with some critiques regarding the production, choruses, and track length. Hopefully, NMIXX continues on the path of good music making and can achieve greater things in the future. For right now, it's not looking too good for them. Although LE SSERAFIM's debut with Fearless wasn't that well received among K-pop fans, I still thought the entire body of work was a strong debut and arguably the best of the year. The mini album had 0 skips and produced some of the best 4th gen K-pop B-sides we had heard in a while. Outside of what people call a lackluster title track and their boring, uninspired creative direction, their success at this time was also hindered by the bullying scandal of their former member Garang. Things finally began picking up for the group with the release of Anti-Fragile. The album was far less interesting. I can't name a single B-side outside of Impurities, but the title track itself was very fun, infectious, and fresh, shooting them up to become one of the top girl groups of their generation. Coming off of a very successful era, LE SSERAFIM continued to keep us waiting with the promise of excellence after it was announced that their first full-length album would soon be released, featuring contributions from legends like Nile Rodgers and Choi Gi-sok. However, this bubble would soon burst the more information and content regarding the release was put out. From the other sets of teasers to the album cover to the album length, the hype quickly faded for this comeback. To make matters worse, People were divided on Unforgiven as a track. While some found it unmemorable and boring, others found it just okay and catchy enough to enjoy. Their biggest B-side to date, Eve Psyche and the Bluebeard's Wife, was loved enough to become a single and promoted on music shows, but multiple mediocre remixes starring K-pop rappers and American soloists definitely ruined the momentum for the track in my eyes. The group continues to be pushed to the American market, having just released their first English single, Perfect Night, for a collaboration with the video game Overwatch 2. The track is actually performing really well given the circumstances surrounding the release. Although they've still managed to maintain their amount of sales and chart even higher than before, I still feel like this wasn't a good year for them by Anti-Fragile terms. Unforgiven was a massive downgrade in comparison to Anti-Fragile, and many fans were left disappointed and underwhelmed by the era as a whole. You couldn't escape Anti-Fragile after its release, but Unforgiven feels like it went largely unnoticed since people rarely talked about it. It's gonna be a tough time topping Anti-Fragile as their career goes on. ITZY is nowhere near an unsuccessful group. They have a solid fan base to fall back on, they sell extremely well, and continue to tour all across the globe. However, it's not hard to notice that their mainstream popularity has declined significantly over the years, and their eras continue to perform worse than the previous ones. 2021 and 2022 were busy years for ITZY. They released a total of 7 singles, their first full-length album, and singles for the Japanese and English market. Things slowed down in 2023 with the group only releasing 1 Korean mini album and a full-length Japanese album that was really more like a repackage that only featured like 3 new songs, but whatever. Like I mentioned earlier, ITZY depends more on their fan base than they do the general public when it comes to their recent comebacks. Despite being the biggest thing when they debuted, they haven't been able to keep up with the new monster rookies that emerged after them. I would say they really lost this power with the release of their album Checkmate featuring Sneakers. We all know the story behind this one, but it killed whatever was left of the MIDZY and casual listeners. Since then, they haven't been able to get out of the sticky situation they've been put in. Their response to Cake and Kill My Doubt was similar to that of Sneakers, not as bad as creating a conspiracy that the company was tricking you with a fake snippet and concept, but still pretty bad. Many people found the title track childish, repetitive, and uninteresting, while the singles Bet On Me and None of My Business did absolutely nothing for the comeback and went pretty much unmentioned the entire era and even to this day. ITZY hasn't experienced the same level of success, love, and support that they got with their first 3 releases, and at this point, it'll never happen again. Yena's career so far seems to be a bit of a roller coaster ride, except it rarely goes up. Instead, it keeps going down with a few twists and turns here and there. This year by far is the worst that it's ever been. And yes, she's only been active for 2 years. Yena's 2023 has been less than ideal, especially in comparison to other IZ*ONE soloists like Eunbi and Chaeyeon, who, even if they haven't been as successful as their debut, still managed to reach new peaks and go viral. Well, Yena actually had her own viral moment this year as well, but for all the wrong reasons, which we'll come back to later. Compared to 2022, Yena's singles have yet to achieve similar amounts of success to her bubbly pop rock debut. Yena's current singles have yet to achieve similar success to her bubbly pop rock debut, Smiley, which peaked in the top 10 of Melon. At the beginning of this year, Yena handed in her bright concept, upbeat sound, and smile for a more serious, dark, mature, and R&B sound. The track was well received, I will say, but it clearly didn't get the same amount of attention as Smiley and even Smartphone, since nobody cared about it enough to bring it with them past the month of January. Her most recent single, Hate Rodrigo, despite the controversy and attention from not only the entire K-pop community, but from news and media sites barely hit the top 100 of Melon. Imagine, not only did an entire era go to waste, but you somehow became public enemy #1 in the process over something so silly. Additionally, her sales continue to decrease with each release, and her crown as best post IZ*ONE artist is now up for grabs. There is still hope for my sister. Like I said, she's only been active for 2 years. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, but it seems like she will never reach her 2022 peak again. She couldn't get it with Smartphone, which was basically Smiley 2.0, and she can't get it with the R&B route, the serious mature route that you all want her to take, because y'all just for some reason hate when pretty women can be youthful and have fun. It's crazy to me. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one.